else than none other than Demetria Kalodimos. And so I'm going to just give you a little, for those of you who might not know her, who I have no idea who that could be at this point, but just in case you don't, and even if you do, I would just like to read a little bit about her. Center based in Nashville, Tennessee. She was formerly an anchor for WSMB TV, an NBC affiliate based in Nashville, Tennessee, where she appeared on weeknight broadcasts at 6 and 10 p.m. Kalodimos started her journalism career at WICD in Champaign, Illinois. She joined WSMV in Nashville in 1984. In 2000, she started Genuine Human Productions, a documentary film company focusing on people. Her first feature-length documentary was Prima Donna, a film about 1970s Nashville. The film won an award of excellence at the 2004 Berkeley Video and Film Festival. Kalodimos' contract with WSMV expired on December 31st, 2017, and was not renewed. She was the longest continuously serving evening news anchor ever at WSMV, and that in itself is an outstanding achievement. And if you want to, she might talk about that later. She's had many honors and awards. 1995 Investigative Reports and Editors Award for Television Investigative Journalism. 2005 Favorite Local News Anchor, Out and About newspaper. 2007 Honorary Doctorate of Humane Letters from Illinois Wesleyan University. 2007 Investigative Reporters and Editors Award for Television Investigative Journalism. 2 National Headline Awards, and I kid you not, 15 Emmy Awards. That's amazing. So if Demetria, she might want to talk about her life and education, but if not, she has a lot to talk about with you today. So I'm just going to hand it over, and thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, Carrie. It's a delight to be with the seniors at the JCC. Some of you may not know that I grew up in the northwest suburbs of Chicago, and I went to high school in Skokie, Illinois. So I know a lot about the Jewish community and the JCC. The high school I went to is 99.9% Jewish. So it was wonderful. Not only a great cultural experience, but we always joked that we got a lot of extra holidays off. And we it's been a couple of years now since I've been on your screen regularly. And I really can't talk much about that because there was litigation and a non-disclosure thing. So I'll probably steer away from that. And I'd rather talk a little bit about how strange it's been to be on the sidelines in such a tumultuous and important time in our world. But at the same time, it's given me sort of a new perspective. I can watch news and critique news, if you will, like a viewer, like a regular viewer. We know how it is when we get too close to our own colleagues and our own occupations, that sometimes we are a little jaded at what we look at, and what we think is going on is not actually what's being perceived out there by the audience. So I think for the most part, at least the local coverage here of what's happened, unfortunately, in the last 48, 72 hours has been pretty good and pretty thorough. But I want to talk to you more about what my next step is going to be. And it's going to be the resurrection of the new Nashville Banner. I know many of you longtime residents will remember the afternoon newspaper. And to be clear, it's not going to be a print newspaper that comes to your house. Of course, it's going to be an online civic news organization. It's a new category. It's called a CNO, and it's a 501c3 nonprofit, but it will be run like a legitimate news operation with seasoned print and video reporters. The reason is what's been happening in our field. The last 25 years or so have not been kind to local news. Resources have been vanishing at a pretty alarming rate. Nationally, nearly 2/3 of all journalism jobs at newspapers have been eliminated since 1990. 2/3 of the employees. 55% of US newspapers are now owned by private equity firms or hedge funds. And the results are sort of what happened, similar to what happened at the Denver Post. an outfit called Alden Capital, cut their newsroom from 300 to 60 in the last 10 years. So that's about more than $2 billion in value, they estimate, has been stripped out of local news in the last 10 years. And we all know what's happening in this community: explosive growth from 500,000 in 1990 to a new projected UT study says we'll have nearly 2 million people once the 2020 census is tallied. And the fastest growing segment is expected to be folks in the age group of 65 to 69. Those are loyal, discerning, and more traditional news consumers, not necessarily kids, relying on devices alone. What's more, our foreign-born population has almost doubled in the last 10 years. And I can tell you that few news outlets are covering emerging communities on a consistent basis. We've given them really no reason to seek out or to support local news. And compared to other southern cities, Nashville has been surprisingly sophisticated in its media expectations for a long time. They grew accustomed to quality. A 50,000-watt clear channel radio station in WSN that's beamed out all over the country, 2 competitive newspapers for many decades, and TV stations like the one I used to work for that were pretty much breaking all the rules and doing long-form storytelling, doing stuff that was a little bit different than what you'd see in other cities. In 1998, a big outfit called Gannett bought the Banner and closed it immediately. The Tennessean absorbed the staff, but then cut the newsroom from 180 to about 60. That was a 2/3 cut in staffing in the last 2 decades. And over on Capitol Hill, which I can kind of see from here downtown at my little studio, the Capitol Hill Press Corps, when I came to town in '84, had about 30 full-time members, people that only covered the Hill, had offices up there, had sources up there. I don't know if you realize that the regular reporting staff on Tennessee's Capitol Hill covering matters that impact the entire state, 10 people. 10 people are covering the Capitol. So much has changed. News publishers have gone online. They've given away a lot of this content for free, and they've chased scale. So what's happened is what we call clickbait. They'll put up stories that generate a lot of eyes so that online advertisers will find their site attractive. And you guys have all been there. You click on the story that you want to read, and all of a sudden pops up, look what Marsha Brady looks like now. Or, how can I get my feet more soft? I mean, all these interruptions, all this pop-up video and other things. So when we launch the Banner, we don't want to do that. We pledge not to do that. We're going to do initially with a staff of about 10 people. That includes the video unit I'm going to run and the print unit that Steve Cavendish, former editor of the Nashville Scene, is going to oversee. Those 10 people are going to cover initially Nashville on an intensive basis. That means schools, courts, the Capitol Hill, metro government, the things that are street level that really impact all of us. And we're going to be there and be online every day. My expertise is in video and audio, so I'm hoping to develop podcasts and documentaries and a couple times a week some really meaningful local video content. And the model we're looking at to do this is a site called the Texas Tribune. It was launched 10 years ago in Austin, providing news primarily about politics and policy. So it sort of paved the way for everyone, launching as a 501c3 nonprofit. And being a nonprofit means a couple of things. First, it means we can accept donations as a charitable organization and grants from foundations. And it also means that every dollar that goes into the new Nashville Banner is going to be dedicated to the product, not to advertisers, not to ratings, not to a corporate owner and sponsorships. And we think that's pretty important. We're going to go with a membership model. I know that those of you who listen to NPR and WPLN, hear about the membership drives, and membership is different than a subscription, because membership means that everyone can still lay eyes and ears on the Nashville Banner. But hopefully those who find it very meaningful and very important in their lives through their membership will support us financially. We're not going to lock anyone out. We're not going to have a paywall. We're not going to say only subscribers get to see this very interesting story, while you can see what everyone else sees that you can get anywhere. So again, launching with a newsroom of 10. And wouldn't you know, in the middle of our finishing fundraising, here comes COVID-19 and the lockdown and rampant unemployment and all the sort of challenges that we never dreamed we'd be facing. But we want to start with 3 years of what we call runway capital. So we don't just go out with a bang and then fizzle and disappear and need all kinds of money. We want to have 3 years of good operating funds. We need to get 10,000 members in order to begin growing and adding staff beyond that initial 10. And we feel that that's pretty achievable, but it's going to require persistence and educating the public and great opportunities like this to talk to several people about the need for supporting local quality journalism. And I'm going to finish by saying, you know, that shouldn't be a hard sell, because the quality of media in a community says something about our culture. Just like pro sports, a top-notch symphony, beautiful art museum, great restaurants. You know, as Nashville has grown, we've taken pride in attracting those sorts of things, and we're not willing to let go of them. So why is solid journalism expendable? I'm not bashing any of my colleagues that are still out there working at the commercial stations, but you will notice that a lot of cuts mean certain sacrifices, shall we say, in quality and quantity of local news. I've often thought what the public might do if we decided, we no longer need professional sports, a farm team is fine for Nashville. There'd be an outrage and an uproar. So I'm hoping that those of you who are out there that rely on solid media and have grown used to it over the many years that it was vibrant in Nashville will continue to expect it, support it, and enjoy it on the Nashville Banner. And the last thing I'm going to say, because we've fielded this question a couple of times. Oh, the Banner was always known as the paper of the right, where the Tennessean was the paper of the left. I want to be really clear. We want to be a nonpartisan, fact-based, journalistically sound online news source. So the answer, before you even ask, is there going to be a slant? The answer is hopefully no. And I say hopefully because we're all human beings. And that's why we have editors and other people that read our material, watch our material before it goes out there, to make sure that we're presenting all sides of an issue and giving weight to all arguments. So I know I probably didn't even take up half your time, but it's kind of strange to be virtual and not see the reactions of people. So you don't know what's resonating and what's kind of falling.
Yeah, this is a whole new format for us as well. So, and I don't know that I see any questions yet. So McCall can help me with that, our backstage producer here. But I did actually have a question from last week, and I think you answered it, from one of our senior members. But I did want to ask you before I even read that question why did you want to resurrect the Banner as opposed to starting out with your own?
With a different name?
Yeah.
Different name. Very good question. I think after a lot of thought, an established Nashville institution and an institutional name would have more instant credibility, recognition in terms of people knowing what it is, than starting something maybe with a catchy name that people would say, what is that? So, you know, we'll see if it was a wise decision. We think it was. And so many people have sentimental attachment to the Banner because, let's face it, most people in Nashville took both papers. They would take the morning and the afternoon paper and kind of, you know, compare and contrast. And that was very healthy. So we think it's a name that people still have respect and some degree of affection for.
It's interesting that you just mentioned the fact that people thought about the banner as more right and the Tennessean as more left. And in these times, oh my gosh, particularly these times. So if you're taking over paper that has that or a connotation towards the right, do you feel like this to people in this paper, or do you plan to do anything like that, or just let it be and people will just understand immediately what your messaging is for the paper?
We hope that the message will be clear from day one. And I can only pledge that we have enough splintering and fracturing in the media landscape. You know, we need something that you can rely on in the middle where you can jump on from this side or jump on from that side and ride a straight line. And that's what we're hoping we can provide.
You know, there's so much mistrust right now of the media in general. I mean, which is unfortunate, of, you know, fake news, that whole mishigash. We have a Jewish audience, why not?
They know.
The words we will.
I don't even know what that means.
And so it's really unfortunate that this has happened. I mean, I just scrolling through Facebook, I mean, especially just, you know, as I do every day, and just read people not believing what's real and what's not real. I mean, how do you even start to from your end, how do you establish this? These are the facts, you know?
And you know, it's heartbreaking when you've built a career and you've devoted your entire life to a profession. And I believe journalism is a profession. We do have a code of ethics. We do follow those, especially, you know, the longtime journalists. You wouldn't last very long in this field if your reporting was unreliable. What's happened in the past, I don't know, is it 10 years? Has it been longer than that? Is going to take a while to undo, but hopefully we will swing the pendulum and get trust back into reporting where it belongs. As I said, I've been a little bit out of the day-to-day, but a couple days ago, someone recognized me, and instead of saying, "Oh, we miss you," they screamed "fake news."
Whoa.
And it was really hurtful, you know? And I kind of didn't know how to react, but I did. I did react, and I stopped and I kind of explained to that person, listen, you know, just like, what do you do for a living? You know, and just like you've trained for that and you take it seriously and you care about it, I do the same thing. You may not believe it, but, you know, please don't throw a phrase out like that, because it's loaded and it's not only insulting, it's hurtful and it's damaging.
Right. It's a very loaded environment right now. So I mean, it's definitely, I see it as a crisis for sure. Just getting back to the question that I had was, and I know that you have pretty much addressed this, but if maybe go into further explanation as to why you decided not to do the Banner as a print newspaper.
Oh, because print is dead. The economic model no longer works on so many levels. Right now, and I have friends at the Tennessean, I respect what they're doing, but the news is as much as 2 days late when it reaches your doorstep. And I still get the paper. I get the paper on my step every morning. But almost every morning I'm frustrated that I already know what's in it. And when big, huge things happen in our community, we've got to wait a couple of days. When the mayoral election was held, it was, I believe, 2 days before we got the headline, you know, edition that you might keep and put in your scrapbook if you were the candidate. And that's because it's being printed in Knoxville now. Again, it's a corporate culture and it's corporate strategizing. And I think they're starting to see that it's not working financially, but you know, they're trying to make it work, and that's what we end up with. It
Right.
just does not make sense. The only way to be now is online. And that's not to say that there won't be, hopefully down the line, special events, symposia, like I said, documentaries and podcasts and other ways to access the reporting than other than just if you don't want to sit at a computer and read a screen. I'm still one of those people where if I'm going to read something that's several pages, I have to print it. And then I can sit and read it properly. I can't read at a screen. And I'm sure many of the folks that are joining us today feel the same way. So there isn't a positive. You can always print what we put up on the banner too. It's going to be printable. No, make no mistake.
Well, so that was pretty much the question. Well, they actually did want to, one of the questions was also, and you did mention this before, but they want to know if you could talk about the lawsuit and was it settled or anything about that.
All I can tell you is it was settled and it's over. And I will say that Meredith Corporation, which I worked for, did make a significant donation along with me to the startup of the Nashville Banner.
Oh,
and I thought that was a nice gesture after what had transpired. So we put out a press release about that. I think it was February 1st. And that was much appreciated.
Yeah. So that, okay. So those are the questions. We're not, this format is, like I said, is new, and today's our launch. And so I apologize for.
Oh, that's all right. Get the bugs out on me.
Yeah, so we have the bugs, which is the problem, which is we're not getting the questions we thought, because I think that there might be some little, still no questions. So I think,
okay. You know what? I'll just go extemporaneously here because
okay, great.
I'll tell you some of the questions that I so often get.
That'd be perfect.
My longtime partner and dear, dear friend, Dan Miller, passed away April 8th of 2009. You might remember it was very sudden. It was very shocking, and it was so tragic because he was such a wonderful person and still had so much to contribute. I will tell you though that his regular blog that he wrote, and he was kind of pioneering, think about that, 2009, 11 years ago, he was writing a regular online blog. That is still up. That's one wonderful thing about the World Wide Web, that if you create something, it can stay up there for years to come. And here's a shocker. His youngest daughter, who was, I believe, 6 at the time, is at Chapman University in Orange County, California, studying to be an opera singer.
Wow.
So isn't that cool?
That's exciting, yeah.
I'll give you a couple more updates. And one, unfortunately, is not good news that I just got yesterday. Rudy Kahless, who I'm sure the seniors know, he
works out at the J, and we all know him.
Well, yes, in recent days, Rudy's son-in-law, who was the father to his 3 grandchildren, died accidentally in a motorcycle sort of dirt bike accident.
Oh.
And this guy was a seasoned race car driver. He was a beloved coach, again, out on the West Coast in California. But I spoke to Rudy and his wife last night, and it's just devastating. The one grandchild is 15. I think the other one's 13. And then there's a little girl around 10. So that's going to be pray for that family. That's going to be a really tough thing to go through. Charlie McAlexander is still a good friend, and he lives back here in Nashville. You might not recognize him because he used to have a big, kind of curly head of hair.
Yeah.
Not much that is left. He wouldn't mind me saying that. But he still dresses outrageously and has a local band available to sing and perform at events, and they're a lot of fun. Well, I see Charlie, I see Rudy, I see Dan's wife, Karen, quite a bit. Bill Hall's son, Jonathan, is a Metro councilman. I don't know if any of you guys put the name with the face with the history. So he's contributing to the city, and I'm sure his dad would be proud. We lost Bill several years ago as well. And there's a few stalwarts that are still, there from my generation and my era, but, not many, unfortunately.
So I've been pretty much in Nashville the same amount of time as you have, and I'm still in shock from, how the city has just exploded. I mean, it still feels like an explosion to me, and it's so hard I'm in neighborhoods. I'm like, wait, where am I? My landmarks are gone.
Yes.
The subway stop, whatever that little, the whole neighborhoods have just been completely, reinvented. And so I would love to hear your take on your journey in Nashville as a citizen and as a journalist, for maybe if there's two different sides that you see the city, and how that's affected you.
Sure. I will remember that the thing that I welcomed with an open arms was the new airport. I'm old enough to remember the old airport. Remember when BNA launched, and that was so exciting. And then we got a nonstop flight to London. And so I think from that standpoint, the accessibility for air travel has been fantastic. Just like all Nashvillians, I'm still just super puzzled how we ended up so behind the times with public transportation.
Oh my God.
I understand so much about, if you guys ever drive Old Hickory Boulevard from start to finish, I finally did that with my husband. And we went down every single twist and turn. It took us 4 hours, start to finish on Old Hickory Boulevard. So I think part of the reason is the way the city and the terrain is laid out, and the rolling hills and getting around hills has always contributed to that, not to mention blasting and sheer rock. Yeah. So, why don't we have a subway? Well, it's pretty obvious. You can't plant a tomato very easily in Nashville. But still, I think we need some innovative minds, obviously, on public transportation, because even now when we're supposed to be safer at home or we're phasing in, I was caught in a Hillsborough Village traffic jam yesterday that was just as bad as, Christmas shopping. Right. So those are things that I don't particularly like. As I sit right here on the corner of 8th and Lee, and to give you a landmark, the Styx roundabout, which some people don't like, I happen to think it's really kind of cool. Right there at the Music City Center, I'm sitting in a 1930s era gas station building that my husband and I renovated and turned into Genuine Human Productions, my studio. But believe me, renovating an historic structure in bad condition is not easy and not very affordable. Mm. But with pride, I look over here at my Metro Nashville Historical Association Architecture Award for saving an historic structure. And I'm really hoping that as we recover from yet more tornado damage, that we look at saving historic structures within reason as consistently as we can. Because, driving around certain neighborhoods, you've seen it, the charming mid-century ranch houses, which kind of are getting more desirable now, they're gone. They've been scraped, as they say. They're very rare, other than Creve Hall and some places in West Nashville. So entire areas of architecture, never mind just, which says something about the character of the community. I'm all for sidewalks, but I grew up in Chicago, and I grew up where you could hear the neighbor's kitchen conversation while you were eating your dinner. And I happen to love, when I moved to Nashville, I loved the big lawns and the spread out, those sorts of neighborhoods. And I'm hoping that we don't lose those altogether.
I would love to see more sidewalks even connecting through those neighborhoods, but I having grown up in Brooklyn, New York, and lived in the city until I moved to Nashville, and I'm a fan of cities in general. To me, the soul of a city is its architecture. So to me, that really is like devastating to see when it's not appreciated and it's not taken, its worth is not valued. Yeah, I did get a question.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I'm so excited. This was actually something I did want to ask. How does one become a member, and how much will it cost?
Oh,
hey, there you go. Probably have your first member from our JC.
And, I should have thought of that. NashvilleBanner.com. The Community Foundation is sort of, taking in the funds. It's all going through the Community Foundation, but it's dedicated to the Nashville Banner. And so you can go online at nashvillebanner.com and see the levels of membership. And, you know, it's a give whatever you like sort of thing. Obviously, there are certain levels that we'd love for people to pledge, but we welcome everyone. And like I said, we need about 10,000. So tell your neighbors, you know, tell everyone else at Temple or, you know, your social groups that we're coming. When I wish I could tell you guys, because I'm chomping at the bit as well. Before all of this cascade of unfortunate events, we were looking at, you know, September. I don't think that's going to be realistic now. I'm thinking in my heart January 1st, and January 1st would be a great time to start anything. I mean, we would always remember what day we started. So hopefully that sort of timeline is feasible.
Well, as life has it, what they say, life on life's terms. I mean, who would have thought we would have been in this condition with a pandemic and what is happening, you know, right now, just on every level. And so maybe it will happen quicker, you know, for the banner to, which I think would be amazing and awesome. The more news sources that we have, I think that, you know, that are factual and you know, really on top of it would be just be incredible for our city and our.
I'm working on a project right now independently. I don't know if it'll, you know, sort of meld into the banner, but another photojournalist and I are working on documenting COVID in the music community.
Oh, wow.
So, and it's been, believe me, that's been like a ever-changing roller coaster. I mean, first the tornado, obviously, then the shutdown. Now we have unrest, unfortunately, and damage and vandalism. And I mean, just so many things are preventing people in Music City from making their music living. So keep your eye out for that. That's been a really interesting, and it keeps me in the game, you know. Tonight, the first budget meeting tonight at the Metro Council. I can't wait to go and kind of be a reporter again.
Oh, great. I moved here from Music City. I mean, that was my dream. I moved here as a songwriter, as most of my friends moved here as songwriters. Yeah. And then, you know, then the winding road to all this, you know, how life unfolds. And it's like, wait, how did I end up here? I moved here for this. And, you know, and unfortunately also because of, it's interesting because the state of the internet, you know, the whole development of the internet, a lot of songwriters lost their livelihood because
my husband's a career songwriter, so
you know it firsthand. And my ex-husband, that was our whole, you know, our whole livelihood was based on the songwriting. And you know, so you've seen that, you've lived it, so you know that. And sometimes I forget that this is Music City now. I mean, you know, Music Row is like, you couldn't, I mean, there were like people with guitars walking down that street. And now it's condos, and it's hard to even recognize, you know, what's left of Music Row. And so I have to remind myself that this is Music City. And why is it Music City? You know?
Yeah, I'll pitch another thing if you'll let me be indulgent here.
Please go for it.
I'm also working on my own on a genuine human production. And my motto is real people, true stories. That's really the niche that I want to do with my own documentary work. Non-news documentary. And I've been following, I think he's kind of the last man standing from a certain era, Chris Gantry.
Oh my gosh.
And doing a piece with him. And we've been kind of ramping up our shooting lately because we've got to get it done, and no time like the present, and nothing else is happening. So right before the call, I was in my edit room looking at an interview I did with him in 2003. So it's been kind of fun, and he's very philosophical, and he's still doing it. He's still putting out his music almost every day on Facebook, using that as his stage, in addition to performing around town. But at something, and I don't think he would mind me saying it, like 70 plus, maybe 78 years old, he still has the passion to make music every day.
Well, even if there's no music business, it doesn't stop somebody from being a musician. You are what you are. It's a way of how you reinvent or use how the world is changing to navigate and be who you are in it. And, you know, if you're an artist or creator, it's having to find new channels and ways to express. And the internet is great for that. But in terms of us as a living, it's been problematic just in terms of people who depend on, getting paid for play and
yeah.
And that's,
But you know what? Thank goodness, Carrie, for WhatsApp. It's amazing. I don't know if you use it at all for overseas, but I have a dear, dear childhood friend who lives in Tel Aviv, I've got to tell you. So I am constantly in touch with him. Particularly, he wants to know he gets American news, of course, but he wants to know everything that's going on and my take on it. So it's been really fun to connect. And sometimes the phone quality is better than, dare I say, AT&T. So if y'all don't
have a musician
that,
friend who lives.
Pardon me?
Yeah. No, I'm sorry to have interrupted you. Go ahead.
No. So anyway, my friend in Tel Aviv and I, in fact, we talk very regularly, and he keeps me up on what's happening in Israel. And this is interesting. I was here working the day of that tragic helicopter crash that killed Kobe Bryant and his daughter and the other people. And my friend Floyd was beeping me on WhatsApp and said, "Hey, what's this about Kobe Bryant dying in a helicopter crash?" It had not even cleared CNN yet. And I thought, how do they know in Israel? There's some really good media over there, because they were 20 plus minutes ahead of almost everything that was being reported here from California.
Wow.
So I don't know exactly how that happened, but I was really impressed. He was getting accurate information too, that they hadn't even confirmed stateside. So kudos to Israeli media.
Yeah, that's the state of the world right now. It's just instant information. And then having to decipher what's factual and not, then that's like kind of 1-2. It's the 1-2 punch, And I know with my son, who's a millennial, he's always like, especially with COVID-19, and there are all these, do this, do that, don't do this, do that, and then people reporting this and that, and he's like, did you check the source? He's always like, check the source from where it's coming, so you can believe that it's true. Because I'll read something, and I'll be like, oh my gosh, now I have to do this. He's like, wait, go back to the source. So, I think people need to be responsible, or I need to be responsible when I'm online and reading the news that's coming up, and okay, is this really happening? And if so, where's this source coming from? So I can.
And particularly if friends are sharing something that sounds outrageous, please, even though we live in a bit of an outrageous world at the moment, but we all have inner barometers where we say, surely that's not right. Let me look into that further.
Well, as a newscaster and a journalist, you've lived through this transition of like old school to this, where it's moments, and this is where you're going with what you're developing. It's like you've lived that transition from, you get the newspaper, and then it was like, it happened yesterday, and then you're reading about it, to now it's happening in the moment, and what's happening. You have to say what's happening,
one of the unfortunate things about the technological change in local news is when live came into the picture. And believe me, it's important to see events unfolding live, but that's when a lot of mistakes were made. Mistakes are made all the time, but mistakes get out and are perpetuated and are not easily corrected when the top criteria is to be first and not necessarily to be factual or correct or confident in your reporting.
Right.
So I caution young reporters, especially that are just starting out. I know there's a lot of emphasis on first. We were there first. You're seeing it here first. But make sure that the information you're sharing is well sourced and reliable, because what you put out first may end up biting you in the end.
Right. I'm trying to stay away on some level from all of the politics that's happening now, and just the state of the the cities and everything that's happening. So it's, it's very delicate, and yet it's so like important at the same time. I was wondering if you wanted to even, if you felt comfortable to discuss what, the current news, what's happening, and your thoughts about anything.
Well, I have thoughts that a dawn to dark, constant cable news station on in any household is not a healthy way to live. I think you should, again, look at multiple sources, both print and broadcast. Go to the ones that you rely on first, and then see what else is happening in the landscape. And please take a break from it. I think it's so important to get away. Say, for the next half hour, I'm going to listen to an album I love, or classical music, or just the birds chirping. Especially now that we're so cooped up, the anxiety level is just at an all-time high. And some of the broadcasts that I watch, I can't even believe what I'm seeing. And again, and also discuss the things. I mean, I love the thought of families watching a news program and then doing a kitchen table discussion of it in a peaceful, measured, kind way. And I know that's really hard in this day and age, but let's let everyone have a viewpoint, but at the same time be confident in ours. And by I mean confident, be well-read and well-rooted in what our viewpoint is, and be willing to be corrected if something happens and it is not what you thought was going to happen. Be open to the fact that your opinion can possibly be adjusted.
Right. That's definitely, that's well said.
But, it's like, show me the money, show me the proof first.
Right. I was reading where somebody was actually speaking to the protesters and saying, make sure you take care of yourself. I mean, even as a protester, like, make sure you go home and rest and you eat well, like, because if somebody doesn't take care of themselves, then it's not good for anybody else around them. And I'm just reminded, thank you for saying that, because too much news sometimes, the anxiety level, I know how it's affecting me. Actually, we have a question up here.
About trusted news sources?
Yes, oh, you see that. So yes, so I'll just read it out loud so you can answer it. Are there any trusted news sources you suggest utilizing now?
Yes, I mean, obviously the institutional newspapers that have stood for hundreds of years are there for a reason. I rely on the New York Times, the Washington Post. I check the Chicago Tribune because I grew up there. I watch MSNBC, CNN. I occasionally will turn on some of the Fox News programming, not the opinion programming, just to see how things are playing out. I really like an online site called The Intercept. And it's, again, a group of really interesting, dedicated reporters that go after untold stories. ProPublica, NPR. Gosh, there really are so many. Look at what your kids and grandkids, those who maybe are still in college or those who are sort of into news, look at some of the sources that they're relying on. And then I'm so sorry to see some of my favorite sources go. There was a magazine called Pacific Standard. I don't know if anyone knew of that magazine. It was just really good, solid journalistic storytelling. And I never missed 60 Minutes. There's a reason why 60 Minutes has been in the top 10 television ratings since the day it signed on. And we're like into the, I forget how many years now. Could it be 50 years? It might be 50 years. Those people, those stories usually are not only groundbreaking, but they're trustworthy. Of course, there are exceptions everywhere. And we've seen, especially what the technology that they can make someone appear as if they're saying something that they didn't even say by sampling the voice and morphing together videos. It's just so frightening that you've got to go to places that you trust. And is there an app we can check with? There are several. Luckily, a lot of newspapers and other outlets now are doing regular fact checking on behalf of the public. Because they know how to mine the databases and put the data into context and save you a lot of hours, frankly. So search out fact checks on all the sites and, read it. And again, in the end, it's what you think, it's what you decide. News has always been about shining a light so that other people can perhaps see clearer. It's not forcing your light as a spotlight and blinding someone.
I think you just answered this question, which I believe you just answered. Is there an app we can check with?
Yeah, a specific one doesn't come to mind because I have so many things bookmarked at any given time. But there are several out there where you can look. And again, if something sounds outrageous, and you're only seeing it in one place, and you're not seeing it widely covered or expanded upon, then there's a pretty good, your antenna should go up, your spidey sense should go up that story needs more checking out. There's a very good continuing education organization down in Florida called the Poynter Institute, Poynter, named after the man, Nelson Poynter, who started the St. Pete Times. And I've been fortunate enough to go down there for training and also to co-teach some things to young reporters and anchors. And the Poynter Institute website is open to anyone. And this is journalists dissecting and analyzing good journalism and best practices. So that comes to mind as one wonderful place to check out, because it's sort of us holding the mirror on ourselves and learning from it. And there's also another, I think, a very entertaining show for people that do consume a lot of media called Reliable Sources on CNN. It's on Sunday mornings. So I know a lot of you are probably watching Face the Nation or, Meet the Press or those Sunday morning Stephanopoulos and those shows, but take a look at Reliable Sources on CNN. And I think it's fascinating because it's reporters, again, talking about the process and their work and how they do it.
Thank you. That's really great information. So we so appreciate you taking the time to be with us, and we're so fortunate to have you in the city. You're a gem.
Well, thank you so much.
You're a treasure. You're a Nashville treasure.
I miss the viewers so much, but I've got to tell you that it has been, since I left and not under the best circumstances, it has been like the most fabulous group hug you could ever ask for. I see people all the time that say, we miss you, we loved you. I mean, and I told my husband, I said, what other job could you have had for decades where people, other than maybe being a songwriter and a great performer and being applauded every night? So both of us are blessed beyond measure and really appreciative, and still, just love living in Nashville and trying to give back as much as we can.
Well, I personally can say every night that I watched you on TV, there was such a comfort and there was such a warmth that came through that it was just really it was just a welcome presence in the home. And so I thank you personally for that. And I just wanted to end our interview, our discussion today. I'm asking you, especially now, there's a whole new world, thank goodness, of young and really intelligent and motivated young people, and hopefully they'll come out and vote and really get involved. But there's also something to be said about the experience of old, I don't want to say old, that's so,
I know.
Of the wisdom of age and experience.
Certainly.
And especially you're being in the news world for all those years. Is there anything that you'd like to share that could be words of pearls of wisdom to pass on or anything?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I'm going to tell you, everyone's got a video device now, a camcorder or a phone or whatever. Please interview your loved ones while you can. Sit down, talk about their life from start to finish. You don't have to do it in one marathon session. Do it in snippets. I interviewed hundreds, if not thousands of people in my journalism career, and I never interviewed my parents.
Wow.
And one of my great regrets is that I certainly know their story, but what a gift and what a treasure it would be to have them on tape telling their story, able to show the grandchildren who were still pretty young when Yaya and Papu died, you know? So that's my little bit of advice. Get the talented person, the motivated person in your family to sit people down. And those of you who are camera shy or whatever, do it for someone else. Don't do it for yourself. Do it for your ancestors who are going to love you for it.
That's really a beautiful way to end. You know, it just made me think when I studied songwriting in New York with Sheila Davis, and she always taught us, and also Sondheim, the personal is universal. And through our own personal stories, we really come to understand the world, the larger world. So thank you for that. That's I love that. Now I'm going to tell my son that he has to interview me and get
Absolutely.
So we hope to have you back again. And we're now I am really going to sit on pins and needles, and I'm going to go to banner.com, correct?
NashvilleBanner.com.
NashvilleBanner.com, not Banner, NashvilleBanner.com. And we hope to see that the Banner resurrected and to have you back with us full force in reporting and all that you do. So thank you again for sharing. This will be up on YouTube. People can watch it again and listen and share it. So here we go from Gordon JCC. It was a pleasure seeing you once again. Thank you so much for sharing your views with us. This was a wonderful afternoon. And we wish you all the safety and health and good wishes.
The feeling is mutual. Thank you so much, JCC.